It's important to note that cameras are not as good at reading light as we are. What we think is a well-lit area, a camera will not see as well lit as we do. So you'll often see photographers using lights and flashes in what looks like a perfectly well-lit area, and this is the reason. The cameras need that extra light. The other thing to be aware of is light comes in different temperatures. Most people think of sunlight, for example, as white light, but it's not, it's yellow. And tungsten filament lights tend to be more white. Now, cameras read those different colors or temperatures of light differently and can give different effects. Let me just give you a simple example. I've got a light here that I am using to light me while I'm filming. If I just change the color to a different color temperature, you'll see how the image changes depending on the temperature I choose. And that's how the camera tries to react differently. And very white light tends to create very blue color, blue sort of tone to the photos, whereas warmer lights are more towards the reds. Now, there's something that I was taught as a kind of rule of thumb about lighting when I started getting into photography, and that is if you put all of the light onto your background and just put loads and loads of light into the background, but nowhere else, it doesn't matter what color your background is, your camera will effectively read it as white. And in the same way that if you make sure there is no light on your background, you deprive it of light, your camera will read it as black. It doesn't matter what color it actually is. How does this help you? Well, by overloading your background with light, because a camera is reading the light levels across the image, if you're stood in front of it and you have no light on you, then you're read as a silhouette, which is a nice effect if you want to use it as part of your performance. In the same vein, if all of the light is on you and none of your background, it doesn't matter what's behind you because it will kind of blur away into darkness. There is actually something called false background photography, which you see in use at things like Comic-Cons and big conventions where there isn't any room to set up a photo booth or anything like that. And all you need is your camera and your flash and a bit of space. And it works by focusing all of the light on the thing you're trying to photograph, and anything that's behind them just fades out into nothingness, which means you can take your photograph in the middle of a hotel foyer or a conference center or anything else. You can have people milling you around you, and it doesn't matter. They just kind of fade away into the backdrop because the light and the photo you get is of the thing that's got the light on it. So that's kind of the very simple approach to light, is where the light is in the picture. And being aware that light focus, light is read by the camera across an image, not on a particular point, unless you have a high-end camera with the ability to tweak those settings. If you've got if you want a nice dark video, and you're wearing your dark clothes and you've got your dark background, and you look through, you record something, and you kind of notice that some of your movements are being lost and sort of lost into the background because the camera cannot differentiate you from your background, you can do something called backlighting. And what that is where you have a light that is off camera, a directional light source, so perhaps like a torch, that is shone on the back of the dancer. The light should only shine on the back of the dancer. It shouldn't be shining on the backdrop. It shouldn't be shining on anything else, but just on the back of the dancer. And what that does, or performer, and what that does is it creates a kind of light halo, a very sort of subtle light halo around the dancer. Which means you have a very slight but perceptible border between the performer and the backdrop. And suddenly those movements which were lost by the camera because of the color similarities are much more obvious and more visible again. But like I said, the important rules for backlighting is the light must be off camera, it cannot be in the shot, and it must shine only onto the back of the dancer. If it's a light that's shining onto the backdrop as well, you won't get the effect. The other thing you can do to try and differentiate a performer from a backdrop is coloured lighting. It's quite easily achieved with a regular light and some coloured plastic acetate or plastic sheets you can buy off Amazon or eBay, and just cut a cardboard frame and put them in front of your light source. It's only thing to be aware of is obviously most lights get hot, so you have to, whatever you're using to hold your plastic must be far enough away from the light that it doesn't melt. But that means you can put different coloured lights upon your backdrops. It means you can put different coloured lights onto you as the performer, just by using what is effectively a coloured screen to put in front of your light. It's worth noting, by the way, that when you see Silverman hosting the Mojo Flow, either tonight or if you've seen her before, she's actually lit with yellow light. She's not lit with a white light. She's lit with yellow, and the reason for that is when we've been practicing and trying different things out, it gives us the most natural look in the camera for flesh tones and the environment, but it also helps make the colors pop. I mean, really kind of much more than perhaps a white light would. It also loses that bluey tone that you sometimes get with a white light. So it's worth playing with colors and how a camera perceives them. There was an old TV series that some of you might know called The Munsters, all filmed in black and white. But if you go and look up color photos of the set's painted in pinks and greens and all sorts of different colors, nothing like you would expect, just to make sure that the colors tones looked right on a black and white film. And you can do similar things with choosing different colored lights and seeing how your camera reacts to them. And it can create some quite interesting effects sometimes, because, for example, we found that a really bright, vibrant pink color really just oversaturates all of the colors in the image. And it's an interesting effect you can get with just a pink film and not any clever camera. So it's worth trying and seeing whether or not you can that there is anything you can use in that to play with these different effects in your videos. Now, the other thing to kind of be aware of, we talked a little about a little before about putting light onto you as the performer. It is quite important to note how the lighting in the area is, how you are lit compared to your background is what I'm trying to say. I see these videos from performers where they've gone out into woodlands to shoot, and this is just one example. And I love these videos, but as I said earlier, the important thing is to keep the performer the center of attention in a video. And if you have a nice, beautiful woodland, even on a nice sunny day, if you go into a covered area, the light tends to be relatively uniform across the image. And while you'll get a reasonably good video, what you will often sort of notice, or even if you don't notice it, you're sort of aware of it, is the performer is lit the same as the background. So they are kind of fading into it a little bit, and they don't quite have that impact they might have had if they stood out a little bit more. And often all it takes is a small light mounted on the camera to just put a little bit more light onto the performer and lift them off the background a bit to bring that focus of attention back onto the performer. And all of what I'm talking about is trying to help keep the performer the focus of the attention of a video, rather than let people's attention wander. Because even if they haven't noticed these things consciously, it's often enough to just kind of detract you from what you were, from paying attention to the thing that you want people to watch.